Hello! Welcome back to the Last Remnant. This is going to be multiple things. For one, it's going to be a test of recording, but also it's going to be a bit of an explanation video. There'll be no story here, you can skip it if you want. I did a video. As you can tell, the world map is slightly differenter, I don't know, than last time we saw it because I have gone through the heroic ramparts. The video I recorded, we went through the heroic ramparts, so we're going to go ahead and show that. Here it is. And it got a little messed up, and quite frankly I couldn't be bothered fixing it, so I said screw it, nothing happened in the video, we're just going to delete it, and we're going to try this here method of recording and see how it works out. This will be basically a test video. I don't think you guys can see it, but if you can, go ahead and ignore the little frame rate indicator in the top left. I don't think you guys can see it, but I'm just using that to keep an eye on the frame rate while doing this. Make sure it's not too low. That was a bit of a delay before I said make sure it's not too low. This is going to be a bit of an explanation video because I've seen people say they have no idea what's going on in battles most of the time, so I'm gonna try and give a bit more of an explanation of the UI and what's going on. I think you guys can more or less figure out the UI here. There's really not much going on the main game kind of wander around UI. But in case you're curious, the dig count is on the right. You can see we have so many digs every time we go to a node, which there are none easily accessible. Every time we go to a gathering node and gather, it will give us one less dig available, and those replenish when you go to the world map or leave an area, I think. You have to leave an area, not just go to another map in the area. I know that much at least. But I think it might be go to like the overview map or the world map. And then there's time shift. Time shift is the slow motion thing. You push a button, it slows stuff down. You guys know how this works by this point, I think. Minimap, etc, etc. I don't think I've mentioned the icons above enemies, but if they have two crossed swords, it means they're aggressive. If they have two exclamation points, it means they're aware. If they have, well, actually, they're aggressively chasing us, I believe. If they have one exclamation point, they're aware of us and are watching us. If they have a broken sword, it means they're passive and won't chase us. So here's the battle UI. There is a lot of stuff going on in this UI, I am aware. So I'll try and explain it to the best of my ability as I cough in the corner. Not cough, I guess clear my throat. Apologies about that, but we're gonna go ahead and stop at the top, also with a tart. The top here, there's information about specifically what command you're choosing, but that's not really all that important at the moment. You can figure it out yourself. But below that is the morale bar, which affects a lot of things. I may have mentioned this before, but I don't think I went into too much detail. Morale affects your attack and defense, and the attack and defense of your enemy, basically. If you have really high morale, then you'll have more attack. If you have maxed out morale, you have way more attack, and this works in the opposite manner. If you have really low morale and the enemy has really high morale, which is the red bar, if you can't figure that out, then your defense will be lower and your attacks will do less damage, you'll take more damage, etc, etc. If you have zero morale, which means I believe it'll flash the bar at the top when it's maxed out in either direction, that means you'll be taking like double or triple damage for every single attack, so it's very dangerous to have low morale, and that usually happens in boss fights because bosses don't give a crap about your morale. They will crush it. On the right hand side, we're actually gonna make sure those settings are normal. Ignore that. On the right hand side is turbo mode and critical trigger. This is just when the thing pops up and says push a button, that's critical trigger. Turbo mode just plays the game faster if you're grinding. We don't use it in videos unless I forget it's on, so it's not necessarily important. But to the right of that is the map, or the mini-map, technically, which most games do not have in battle because there's no reason to, and again, I've mentioned this is going to be like an explanation video, so it's going to be a bit slow, apologies. But the mini-map is important because it shows positioning, and it works together with your Union order, which it also works together with the enemy Union order. It's a very complex system here. But just for the minimap, we're just going to talk about the minimap right now. The two flashing unions are our union, so the blue flashing one is the one that's currently selected, and the red flashing one is the enemy union that's currently selected to attack, and it'll draw a little line between them to show you the distance, basically. There's not really much reason for the line, but whatever. Now, generally, you would want to attack the enemy union closest to you, because that's generally what the AI will do. You have less distance to cover, less chance of being intercepted, etc, etc. We'll talk about that in a bit. But generally, you want to attack the union that's closest to you. In this case, our union right here doesn't actually have an enemy union that's close to it, but I mentioned it works together with friendly union and enemy union order. This is the first enemy union shown in the bottom right. You can see it says Group A, it has 3 little dots. Shall fight Group A specifically. This means this is the first union. They will generally act first. It is turn-based, despite what it may seem. This game is actually turn-based. So Group A will go first, as will Turtle Squad, which is Union 1 for us. And you can see they're actually fairly close to each other, but there's another friendly union closer to the enemy union, so they might actually go for that union instead and cause an interception, which would be annoying, but there's not much I can do about that because of positioning. Anyway, we'll go ahead and tell them to attack. On the left side right now, this is a screen you're not going to see very often, but on the left side right now is our union status. That little thing over there that's swapping back and forth. That is our union status. That shows us how many people are in the union, their current state. The little dots will show you current state. Blue means they're fine, they don't have anything really wrong with them. Total HP, AP, the little M gauge, which I believe is used for certain specials. I don't actually know what that gauge is called, but it's the little vertical orange bar with an M next to it. I'm not sure what it actually stands for, I'm just going to be honest. But if I push this button, this is the screen you're likely going to see. This is the individual units inside the union, so this group of 4 right here that's currently selected. And I use this because it tells you the action they will do. And the action they will do is based on what's going on in battle, the AP they have, the little M gauge they have, and that's about it, isn't it? And well, I guess the command you pick, but command you pick is based on what's going on in battle, so it kind of goes around, comes around. If you have low AP and you're not hurt, you're generally going to have attack with mystic arts, attack with combat arts, or some other form of standby. This is generally what the fights will open with. You'll see this a lot. The further into the fight, you'll unlock additional commands such as keep your HP up. What is the other one? Keep your HP up will attack while healing, so it won't break deadlock, which we'll talk about later. It's probably the only battle we actually do in this video, who knows? But we will talk about that later. Keep your HP up won't break deadlock. We'll go ahead and attack a few people here. So you can see this one would use Double Strike 2 and Flash 2, this one would use Wind Shear 2, etc, etc. That one would use Double Time. If you have the AP for it and no one has the buff, generally the game will give you some sort of support action or debuff action basically all the time if it can, which is nice because it's nice to have those. Is there anything else I need to talk about here? I'm not sure. The order that union members attack in once they get into battle, so go ahead and begin battle here.
Come on, let's kick some ass.
The order that they attack on the left side there is based on speed, as far as I'm aware. So it's our speed versus the shelf life speed, and speed is obviously a stat calculated per individual unit, etc, etc. That was the wrong button entirely. So the faster your units, the more likely you are to attack before the enemy, and this is good because obviously it reduces damage taken every single fight. Like Turtle's group is extremely slow. Everyone in this group is slower than a shelf life. So they all attack after the shelf lives, which means we take all of this damage before we even have a chance to kill the enemy. Which, again, not good. We won that fight. Excellent. Hooray! This is all stat groups, this is when they level, etc, etc. There's the items we get. You guys can, I think, more or less figure that screen out. They level up, they get stats, we get items, we move on. As far as certain things in battle, by the way, for story we actually go this way, we go up this path, but this path over here unlocks another area, we'll kind of wander in that direction. For different effects that can occur in battle, deadlock is just a standard fight. 1v1 me, mate, etc., etc. Deadlock, you lose or gain no morale. Morale does not move for either side. And both sides can attack freely, assuming they have not used an action for that round, that turn. For instance, if I have a union kill an enemy union, and then another enemy union attacks that one, it won't be a flank because they're not deadlocked anymore. It will just be a deadlock, except our union has already acted, so we'll just stand there and take a hit to the face without being able to do anything. There's also flanks, which I believe I've mentioned. Wow, you spawned in a terrible location, my friend. But there's also flanks. We're actually going to do this just because I can show it. So this one does stay on your toes. It preserves battle readiness, they stand there. It's not an action. But, you know, stand your ground, you might notice, is something different. So we'll actually have those two do different actions. Maybe they'll both get attacked. Who knows? Flank, I believe I've talked about, but it means someone is already deadlocked with you. And that unit will then flank you, hit you in the side, and do additional damage. You cannot react to someone that is flanking you. It is not physically possible. If you get hit by two flanks, you'll get hit by a rear attack, which obviously makes sense because there's only technically 4 sides they could possibly attack from if we're going to be realistic here. Oh, I guess you can fit a lot of people on flanks and stuff, depending on how big it is. Whatever. Generally, if you're getting flanked, it's bad. If you get hit with a rear attack, it's awful. They're getting increased damage, you can't react to it, but it also means you're getting hit with 2 other unions that are getting increased damage that you can't react to. There are enemies, there's not friendlies, there are enemies that can multi-deadlock. Wow. The levels there. There are enemies that can multi-deadlock. This means they can't flank until a certain number of friendly unions are in deadlock with them. Usually it's 2 or 3 deadlocks before you can hit them with a flank. The other thing that you might have noticed is raid lock. Generally you'll be hit with raid lock if you break deadlock and then something attacks you, or you will get hit with a raid lock if you're standing by and an enemy attacks you, like I did with those 2 unions where I told them to stand their ground or stand by. They reacted to the attack because they had not acted during that turn yet. But it's considered a raid lock because for all intents and purposes, they basically got charged down. Sometimes there's a rare monster spawn over here, by the way. It's a dragon with like 30,000, no, that's actually more than that. It's like 300,000 HP or something stupid. It will murder you. Don't mess with it. It's not that thing, by the way. It's a dragon that spawns over here. That might actually be a rare monster. Who knows? We'll check it out. If you get hit with a raid lock and then another enemy union hits you, it skips flanks entirely and goes to rear. Kind of worried about that thing now, considering it takes the place of the giant dragon. Obviously being raid locked is bad because, as you saw in that last fight, it drops your morale quite dramatically. And the lower your morale, as you would call, the more damage you take. So getting hit with multiple raid locks in a single turn will really quite dramatically screw up your morale for pretty much the rest of the fight, especially if it's a boss fight. Weird enemies. I think I've technically mentioned this, but the little dots, that's how many units are in it. This one has 4, this one has 3. I don't remember the little dot colors. Blue is obviously fine. Black is dead. RIP. If a unit is dead, they have to be revived via item arts or mystic arts or something like that. A unit can be dead without the union being dead. Individual units, recall, have actual health, and you might notice there's a lot of finite details. I don't know why I said that, doesn't make any sense. A lot of finite details. There's a lot of minute details is the word I was going for there. Individual units have HP, and you might notice when we use cure skills, individual units get healed. This means you can heal a union, but not a unit that was actually severely injured, which means they might get killed the next turn, and then you have to revive them, etc., etc. You can't really do much about that because you can't directly tell any of these people what to do, what to heal, what to attack, etc., etc. Set of the field, why not? Because I can.
Come on, let's kick some ass.
There's a desk. Hello, desk. So there's a lot of little details in it that you can't really do anything about. There's a lot of RNG in this game, to be fair. These guys have a crap ton of health. It's actually kind of bad. Not going to lie. And we're going to get hit with a flank. And the reason we're going to get hit with a flank, this is important details here. If you recall, both enemies spawned next to each other. We had a union run up to the enemy. And then the second enemy union gets a turn after our first union and their first union get a turn, which was a deadlock is what it was. So both of those unions ran towards each other, deadlocked, fought. And then the second turn came around and the second enemy union was closer to our union than any of ours was to theirs. Which means their union ran there, got there first, and decided to horribly maul us in the flank. Yes, I should mention this, because I forgot to last fight. Actually, we haven't had a fight where I could really mention this, have I? The enemy union details in the bottom right, hopefully I'm explaining this well enough that you guys can figure out what's going on, by the way. The enemy union details on the right have little arrows on them. After the first turn, obviously the first turn they have no arrows. As do friendly unions, but in this case we have nothing going on. But the little arrows indicate what's going on. In this case, the single red arrow means we're being flanked. They flanked someone last turn. It doesn't mean necessarily that they're still flanking them, but they flanked someone last turn. If they have two white arrows, it means they're deadlocked with a union, and we could then flank them if we have extra unions, or multi-deadlock in some cases. If they have two red arrows, that means they have rear-attacked a union. So you do have to keep that in mind.
Be careful.
Unions that are out of deadlock and healing will generally go first. Period. End of story. This applies to the enemy as well. If they're out of deadlock,
Suck it up and stop these guys.
there goes the raid lock. If they're out of deadlock and they heal without attacking anybody, their turn will generally go before anyone else's, except for deadlocked unions. Deadlock unions will always fight each other first. End of story. Bear this in mind when you have other unions who are providing backup healing. You really need to have their HP up well before they actually need the HP, generally, because you can't heal before they fight whatever they're deadlocked with. Hopefully that makes sense. The turn order is, for the first turn, is, you know, whoever's closer, 1-2, 1-2-2, 3-3, etc., until obviously we're out of enemies to take turns. I captured stuff. And then the second and subsequent turns is based on who's deadlocked, who's flanking, positioning, etc., etc. Deadlocked unions go first, and then it's based on the same thing as turn 1, where positioning is extremely important, and it will allow unions that are closer to each other to obviously go first because they have less distance to travel, so they would theoretically get there before the other unions, etc., etc. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense. I think I aggroed something. If that didn't in any way, shape, or form clear up something, there's Gore. Apparently that's a freaking town. I didn't know it was a town. Hopefully that I swear. Hopefully that cleared up something for you guys. If I didn't explain something well enough, you guys can let me know, because there will be a break between this video and the next one, primarily to see how the recording actually went. I don't want to just dive into more recording when I don't know how this actually works and how well it does and how it's synced up and all that, etc., etc. But go ahead, if you have questions, let me know. I'll try and explain them. If I need to, I'll make another video explaining specific details in slightly more, well, detail, etc., etc. So thanks for watching. See you guys next time.